Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Our Rating, the show where we take movie franchises, break them down by movie, and actually give them a score overall so we can see where the franchise lands on our board as a whole. Now, the past two movies that we've done, the past two franchises we did, we tried to fit the entire franchise into one episode, and it was just way too long. It was a lot of work for us, it was a ton of work for our editor, and it was too much to ask of the actual audience. So what we're going to start doing from here on out is just doing one movie an episode. We'll still do franchises, but the franchise might take us 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, depending on how many are in the franchise. So today we're going to be talking about the Predator franchise, of which there are 5. So this is day 1. We're going to talk about 1987's Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I'm joined today by Will and Brian. How are you guys doing today? I need to ask one of you individually because every time you both just look at me like, what?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for asking, Dan. I'm doing well. And Run, how are you, Brian?
I'm surviving. I'm making a comeback this week, health-wise.
Very nice. All right. So, Predator, 1987. This is the one that started the whole franchise. Brian, I'll start with you. What is your history with this movie or this franchise? Like, have you seen this a lot before? Are you a big fan? This is your first time coming to it?
So this is a huge favorite of mine. I've seen this many times. I think I probably watched it for a reasonable number. It would probably be this like my 30th time watching the film. This is one of those films that whenever I would see it playing on TV or something like that, or catch it back in the day when things aired on a time schedule, I would stop and finish watching the movie just because I'd enjoyed it so much. And so the thing was, coming into it this time, like paying attention to it, taking notes, really comparing it to other things, had a totally different feel for it for me. I noticed things I'd never seen before because I was just such a huge fan of the genre and the style and everything about this. That I guess I let a lot of things slide. So I did notice some things this time around, and it was a little bit different approaching it, under a microscope.
Interesting. What about you, Will?
Yeah, I've seen this movie probably a dozen times. Again, like big action movie fan growing up due to my family enjoying those kinds of movies. And, Arnie was a big household name. So a lot of fun, this movie for me, watching it again and again. Similar to Brian, actually analyzing it and thinking of, the acting and thinking of the writing. It maybe doesn't score as high as in my mind it originally would have. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Not that it's a bad movie by any means. I still love it. But it does. Yeah, it does. You find a little things that are like, okay, maybe they could have got some actors in this.
I gotta say, I have like almost the exact same thing where like I didn't grow up with a whole lot of R-rated movies. Like my parents were pretty religious and whatnot, so like I didn't come to this till probably like late teenage years. But I was a big Arnold Schwarzenegger fan, probably from like 18 to almost 30. So this is one that was definitely in high rotation during like college years and stuff like that. So like I don't have the same nostalgia from like childhood, but definitely from like late teens, early 20s on kind of thing. I've seen this movie a ton. I'm a big Arnold fan, and this is one of my favorites of his, I want to say, or at least it has been historically. Haven't watched it as much recently because, kids in the house and, you watch different things when you're older. But I have a fond nostalgia for this one, and exactly like both of you were saying, watching this with a pen and paper in hand, you're like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's not quite how I remembered it. I gotta say, like, I almost, because it's just been a really busy week and we were out camping for a couple of days, I almost said to myself, you know what? I've seen this movie enough times. I don't need to rewatch it. I can talk about this one pretty easily. I'm so glad I watched this one again because there were literally scenes I didn't remember.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember the beginning starting off with that stupid alien ship, and we'll get there in a second. And I remember the like, Dylan, you son of a bitch. But like actually getting from point A to point B on that one, I was like, I don't remember them flying in on helicopters. I don't remember this military beginning. Like all of that was just like, what am I watching? Like, there's the high points, which obviously you remember, but like there's a couple of things in between where I'm just like, I don't know what this is. I have no idea what I'm watching right now. Which is really, I honestly thought I found like a director's cut or something for like a split second. I was like, did they make a different version of this? But No, so I've also got a fond love of this. I don't know that I could hit 30 times with it. I think that's a little higher, but I'm probably closer to like the dozen mark. That sounds about right.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think it's funny this concept for this film started as a joke. Someone was like, the only person Rocky Balboa has yet to fight was E.T., the extraterrestrial, and so was born the Predator franchise.
Yeah, I read that as well, and it was just like, oh, interesting. Did not know originally that's where that came from. And I'd forgotten that apparently Jean-Claude Van Damme was originally supposed to be the Predator, which had that worked out properly, could have been a really acrobatic Predator, but not a very imposing one. I think of Jean-Claude Van Damme as a fairly small person, not towering over Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Kevin Peter Hall was the superior choice by far. If you don't know, Kevin Peter Hall is 7'2". He's just amazing. And seeing him behind the scenes with the costume taken apart is just it's impressive. Not only his physique, but the costume that's built around him and what he had to wear is very impressive.
Yeah, it was over 200 pounds, right?
Yeah.
Massive thing. All right, so because this is our first episode doing just one movie per episode, do we want to break the movie down a little bit more, talk about like scene by scene? How do we want to actually approach this? Because we tried to like fit in 4 movies into like 2 hours before.
Yeah.
Now that we've got like 45 minutes, we can kind of spread our legs a little bit more. Is that how we want to?
Okay.
Your wording is just ideal tonight.
Okay, so
we can spread our legs a little bit. How did you make that one sexual? Oh, spread your legs. Yeah, okay. I was thinking like, stretch your legs. I was thinking stretch your legs is what I meant to say.
No, you said what you meant to say.
No, I realized now. I heard it in the replay.
I was gonna let it fly.
Will can't do that.
You guys both made references to the acting in this movie. Now, me going back into it and really paying attention to it, I did notice some things that I both appreciated that I hadn't really appreciated before, and some things that I was like, ooh, that's way worse than I thought it was. Okay, first off, I really do think that Arnold Schwarzenegger had the worst acting in the film. I think he was the worst. His lines were terrible. When he would talk about anything that was important, any kind of what's the word I'm looking for, militaristic, tactical, like any kind of tactical idea of what they're gonna do, it didn't make any sense. Like, it was just words. It was like that doesn't even, like, it doesn't compute with me. It was very distracting when I started paying attention to him, because these were things that he would not really say in real life, and his one-liners were just so cheesy and out of
amazing. You said amazing wrong.
Yeah. They have their charm.
Stick around. They were super duper fun because you're into it, right? You're into it because there's these big buff dudes with huge guns and explosions everywhere, and it's just entertaining. And so the one-liners seem to just flow and fit. But when you stop and pay attention to it, that is so unrealistic. And then his just his simple dialogue and his acting and everything else was really, really terrible when you pay attention to it. Luckily, that's really not what you're there for. You're not there for his development as a character, I don't know. So what did you guys think about the acting in this film?
So I'm going to push back to the tiniest bit. I agree with you that Arnold Schwarzenegger was terrible when he was interacting with other people. But a good chunk of this movie is him just being in the jungle, being a Boy Scout, attacking the Predator. And I thought he did a pretty damn good job at all of those scenes. Like, he does.
That was right. You're right. That's spot on.
Yeah. But even some of the one-liners, like, stick around is kind of silly. And apparently that was improvised in the moment. But, like, I'm not going to try the accent. You're one ugly motherfucker when he first sees the alien. Like, yeah. I don't know. I still use that line randomly, never to somebody, but just kind of like.
And that one carried throughout the franchise. It was so iconic, right? So there are some good ones that are just so good and they stick and they're fun. And it's not just the one-liners though. It really is his dialogue with the other actors.
Oh yeah,
that's what's terrible. But you're right. Him running around in the woods, he's showing off the muscles when he's bending that bow and just flexing everything. You're like, oh my god, he's making me tired. So he's awesome to watch, but his dialogue and interactions with the other people were just so terrible to me. But what was amazing and what I actually thought kind of almost stole the show and upstaged acting wise was the play Bill Duke, who played Mac.
Yes.
His performance as he loses his mind going after the Predator was very impressive. I thought that was a really good job and outshone everybody. I also liked Dylan, what's his name? Carl Weathers. I also liked his performance playing that CIA agent who you're not really supposed to like. He kind of develops his character along. He doesn't believe anything crazy is happening until he actually sees the Predator with his own eyes. And then he wants to make up for his mistakes, his shortcomings. He wants to try and pull it around. And I kind of felt his character development was pretty decent. But for sure, Bill Duke was just amazing in his portrayal of being stressed out in this film. His little monologues and stuff were incredible.
Carl Weathers' character, and you're more familiar with Aliens, so you may fight back on this one, kind of reminded me of Paul Reiser's character in Aliens, where like he's the corporate guy that you're not supposed to like.
Yep.
But by memory, Paul Reiser's character is a little bit more like full-blown evil, whereas Carl Weathers is a little bit more nuanced and kind of like, yes, I tricked you to doing this thing that I needed you to do, but because my friend is in danger and this is the only way that I could go and try and go after my friend. As
you
opposed
understood
to
his
we want to bring this alien back that's going to ruin humanity. And
yeah, he felt this was the way to get the job done. You understood it. So he wasn't a villain. He was just a flawed character.
Yeah, which I'm totally okay with.
Yeah.
I agree with most of the things said.
Which ones do you not agree with?
No. I believe initially the script was Arnie's in the jungle fighting the Predator. There was no posse. There was no team. And Arnie didn't like that, so they rewrote it. And so I feel like it's Arnie's character might not be acting troubles as much as writing troubles from what you're saying, Run. Just you're saying more that the dialogue was not up to par, not how he's delivering the lines and or acting.
That's fair.
But that's minute. Arnie's not the greatest actor, let's be honest. That said, I feel like the characters that were added in were very one-dimensional characters. You've got the tractor character who's very good at tracking.
Billy.
Yeah.
You've got the big gun badass character,
The sexual tyrannosaurus.
Hey,
right?
Jesse Ventura actually did quite well in the portrayal of that character. I thought it was interesting. I liked this vibrant cast of characters.
Yeah.
And again, that's something that we'll see in other films that they try to capture. They kind of fail. This one, you like these characters. They're one-dimensional. They don't develop anybody other than maybe Dylan.
Mm-hmm.
But you like them. And you don't really want to see them get killed. You're almost voting for one person to last longer than another. But you're right. They're definitely one-dimensional.
They're very one-dimensional. So what they were given scriptural-wise and what they performed, they got the nerdy character. They're all in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think what they were given, they did fine with. Because, again, I don't think a lot of these guys are well-known for their acting chops. They're well-known for their bodybuilding and big muscles, giant imposing forces, right? So I was okay. I'm okay with that. It is what it is. And it's in the vein of what this movie is, which is like a pure adrenaline junkie fun explosion fest.
It's action meets sci-fi.
Which is actually one of the things that I kind of pushed back on this time around is the action scene where they're in the village and they're like taking out the insurgents or whatever it is, the rebels. No, whatever, the bad guys. Was so nonsensical to me that it was just like it was really distractingly bad. Where they're just like he's walking around and like all of them are hip firing. They're just kind of random.
Oh, that was terrible, wasn't it?
And just like things are exploding all over the place. And this happened to me when my daughters walked in the room. Like, what are you watching? I'm like, I don't even know. Come back any other time of the movie and it's good.
One thing that I did a little touch to that scene that I did like, and this kind of falls under the scoring, the sound effects category, was they started up the helicopter. and that helicopter just winds up slowly. You don't even hear when it starts, but it's real subtle, and it just winds up and gets louder and louder and louder and louder. And the intensity of that battle scene just gets more and more ferocious. And that helicopter starting up just builds to a climax until they finally blow up the helicopter. And then everything's just popping off. Completely ridiculous, but I'm here for it. It was fun to watch.
For sure. It was interesting because, like, they didn't in any way describe where the hostages are. And they just go in and they start blowing up every single building. I'm like, how do you, like, we haven't found any hostages yet. Well, they're in the burning building behind you.
Yeah,
like,
you
have
just
no idea what
destroyed.
you're destroying.
Yeah.
You're just kind of walking in, like, shoot first, ask questions later. Okay, sure, it's fine.
Don't worry, they found the one damsel, so we had some
Was not a
female representation there.
Right. Who was not a hostage at all. You're right. Yeah.
No.
One of the
I
enemies.
guess she was the rest of the movie, but not at the time they found her.
Not
Yeah.
the rest. They cut her loose. They cut her loose.
Fair.
Yeah. Okay. So acting not great, maybe. Writing not great, maybe.
The
Action-
writing might not have been great, but the plot I actually really like. Like, the idea of this movie, the only thing I don't like, and I kind of touched on it a second ago, is I think this movie would have been so much more interesting if you don't have that alien spaceship at the very beginning, because that tells you right off the bat what you're fighting against. You don't need to see it for a while, but, like, you don't see the alien, the predator. I wrote it down somewhere for like 52 minutes of this movie. Like, literally, it's almost the halfway mark before you actually see the alien. And I think this movie would have been so much cooler if they played up that and just be like, something is out there. It's hunting us down. We don't actually know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, there's been like 4 sequels now, so we know what predators are, right?
Did they
But,
even
like,
have teaser trailers back then? Like, they kind of did like a full-on 2-minute like montage of the movies when they made trailers or advertising for them.
I'm certain. I don't know what the trailer for this movie looks like, but I'm certain it would have the predator in it in some capacity, or at very
Right.
least the way that it looks with the infrared
Yeah.
sensor,
Right.
and that's fine. But, like, I don't know, just something about that seems like it would be a lot cooler to me, is if you're just like, what is out there? Like, the fear of the unknown is stronger than the fear of what
Mhm.
you're looking at, right? Like, somebody in
Right.
chat just mentioned the Jaws effect. Exactly. Like, the less you see of Jaws, the scarier Jaws is.
Mhm.
And I really liked that. It's like, wow, you were actually really, really far into this movie before you see the predator uncloaked. And you're really far in before you see him take off his mask. And that's really cool to me. Like, I wish they'd kind of played that a little bit heavier than they did. But other than that, the idea of, like, a team of highly trained men going into the jungle, fighting something they don't understand, losing to it slowly over time, and it coming down to like a one-on-one fight. Now, I do wish the Predator was a little more interested in a fair fight. It doesn't look like he's looking for that at all, so much as he's just like trying to get the easy trophies. But something about the plot there really does connect with me. Like, that seems like a cool idea. However, I agree. I don't know that the actual writing of the script is as strong as it could have been.
Yeah. I think, when he kills, is it Blaine that gets hit with the tree and later gets hit in the head with the photon blast? I don't think he was aiming for Blaine. He was aiming for whoever was holding Blaine, and that's why Blaine gets killed in that sequence, because Blaine didn't have a gun. He was being carried out of there. He was like, I can make it, and they're just trying to lug him out of there, and he just takes that blast to the side of the neck and goes down. And I was like, that's weird. He must not have been. And then I realized he was trying to shoot, I believe it was Schwarzenegger that was trying to carry him. He was trying to take out Schwarzenegger at the time. Schwarzenegger's waving around his big old machine gun.
I'm gonna counter on this, both of you, a little bit here. I feel like Predator fights 1v1. The Predator chooses a target and takes them out.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like when you go bow hunting for deer, you don't put down your bow to kill the deer. You're a hunter. You're going to take them down. It doesn't matter, if they put down their weapons, you put down your weapons, and you fight the same level. I think the Predator's just there to collect trophies, proving they're the best hunter.
Do you agree that they don't attack the woman because she doesn't have a weapon?
I do.
So then if Arnold put his weapon down, would the Predator leave him alone?
I don't think so, because they've already engaged in combat.
Yeah,
Right?
that's why when Schwarzenegger's unarmed at the end of the film, Predator removes all of his gear to go hand-to-hand combat with Schwarzenegger because there's no weapons left, and he still wants to beat this guy, but he doesn't want it to be an unfair fight. He wants it to be a fair fight.
Yeah, I think in Arnold's case, like at the end, or Dutch's case, I think the Predator's like, this opponent has given me a good run. Let's go, weapons down and fight it out at the end. Like, I feel like it was like a sign of respect to the opponent at that point because it was engaged in such a long battle with Dutch, right? Whereas other cases, the Predator's just like, not a challenge, take them out.
In the comics and novels, the Predator Society regards hand-to-hand combat kills as more honorable than to use your shoulder cannon to blast them from a distance and whatnot. There's some cases where when they go hunting for aliens, to take one down with a spear or your wrist talons is just this high praise honor because it's such a challenge to do. So you in their society, you get mocked for shooting an easy target. And they don't want that. So they want the most challenging target they can for the highest praise. And then those kills that were the most challenging, they tend to take those skulls and trophies and put them on their trophy rack in a position of honor when they do that. So going and fetching their kills is always a top priority for them. That's why you see them string them up immediately, which is almost unrealistic in some of the other films too. There's like some discontinuity between the action sequence and the time that the Predator has the kill strung up. You're like, wait a minute, he had like 5 minutes and he's got those bodies already hung from the ceiling. Like, how'd that happen?
Doesn't he have like a gel or something that like removes all the skin and everything? Like, just like, not a gel, sorry, like a smoke or something. Like, he does something to the bodies that can
each
like,
movie he's got some
really
different tricks to do to clean them and everything. So and that's the thing, is that they do hunt to learn how to become better hunters. And so there's always a progression. And we'll see that later when we go back in time to Prey. You'll see a different type of weaponry that the Predator is using in that movie because it's a prequel.
Yeah. We'll get to Prey down the road, and that's one I'm very interested in talking about as well. But there's a couple.
But yeah, they set the standard for this. Let's collect trophies. Let's fight for honor. Billy goes hand to hand with him in the first thing. I wish we could have seen that fight instead of just hearing him scream, which, by the way, the scream of Billy's didn't make any sense to me. Later, there's a lot of different sound effects in this movie that when I'm paying attention to it, just didn't make any sense and bothered me a lot when I started to pay attention to it. There's duplicate sounds being used for different things that I'm like, wait a minute, that was a scream that I heard 3 scenes ago. Now they're using it again over here, and it's not the same thing. And this isn't the Predator mimicking the sound either. This is 2 different people, and they're using the same sound effect. There were a lot of cheap little tricks they did in there that I caught when I was really paying attention.
They probably blew their budget on the Predator costume.
Right, or that minigun, which was so sweet. That was money well spent right there.
Okay,
just mowing down the jungle with bullets was amazing.
With the backpack, that's just a toy, right? Like, that kind of gun doesn't really exist. Like, I know miniguns exist, but like the whole backpack thing, like,
oh yeah, that's a real thing.
Exactly like that.
Yeah, I think they modded a minigun off of like a helicopter minigun. I think they modded it. I don't think the one in the movie's real, but yeah, guns like miniguns on choppers exist.
Sure, on choppers, but the backpack part of it is the one's like, this looks like a G.I. Joe toy. I don't know if this is.
I don't know. I want to believe that thing's real because it's awesome. It's just awesome.
I love the way.
I mean, it could very well be real now. I don't think it was real back in the day
in 1987.
Yeah. I
loved at one point. I never caught it before, but he like pulls the gun up and he just like cocks it by just like rotating it halfway back and forth. I'm like, is that? I don't know. I thought it was a toy 10 seconds ago, so who knows? Maybe that's exactly how you cock a minigun, but it's just one of those things that looks cool.
It
probably looks cooler than it is functional.
Yeah.
There were a lot of things that they didn't need to do that were just cool. Like when Ventura's like, he's dug in like an Alabama tick, and he's like, oh, you're bleeding. He's like, I ain't got time to bleed. You got time to duck, and they shoot the grenades up in the air and blow it up. Like, if you pay attention, they had finished the battle. Like, those were just some leftover dudes. Like, they could have just like taken their time and done anything. But no, they're putting in some funny banter and some cool little, lobbing grenades and blowing more stuff up, which was just entertaining. That's why we're here, right? To see things explode and these amazing action sequences.
Yeah. I do like some of those scenes, though, because it does kind of portray this as like a long-term unit as opposed to guys who have just met each other, right? Like the scene on the helicopter, I actually think is really important with, I don't know what music was. I didn't recognize the song, but I liked the song that was playing in the sense that like, this was just their way of getting geared up before a mission. They're
I want to say it was Little Richard.
They're just kind of like chatting and talking. Like that really worked out well for me. And little interactions, like you just mentioned, worked well for me. Even when Bill Duke's character is like kind of mourning the death of Jesse Ventura, like he's not the world's best actor, but I definitely got the sense of like, oh no, there's somebody who actually cares about this guy. Like this actually has an effect on him, as opposed to just like, oh crap, someone died. Well, better move on. Yeah. I don't know. I really liked the overall feeling of this team, especially considering, again, not the greatest actors in the world, but did a good job of forming this unit.
Right. And then it puts Dylan on the outside of this team as this new recruit in there. By the way, I think I said Blaine earlier got shot in the side of the neck. Blaine got his chest blown out. I was talking about Poncho. He was the guy that got hit with the log, and they were carrying him out, and he got shot in the neck when he was unarmed.
Yeah. Now, just because we're talking about the shots, whoever took I didn't write the names down, I apologize. The guy who took the shot in the chest and like exploded his chest cavity. That
was Jesse Ventura's Blaine, yeah.
Right. Doesn't Arnold Schwarzenegger take the exact same shot to the shoulder later on and just kind of like, and moves on?
It hits his rifle and like ricochets off his rifle and blows it out of his hand is the one I saw. But that's the thing, and we'll see this throughout the franchise. There are certain times when people can get hit with things and it has a different effect, and the Predator gets hit with things and it has a different effect. There's some times when it's like, okay, how come the Predator seems bulletproof right now? I mean, when he's running away from the minigun and they're mowing down the field and he only gets like a scratch on him, but then like Schwarzenegger's like puncturing him left and right with different things, his spears and stuff. So there's all kinds of weird like inconsistencies with how tough the Predator is, and they don't do any kind of dialogue to explain that.
I just assumed that at the time where they're using the miniguns, he's invisible, right? So it's more likely that you could miss an invisible target. Whereas when Arnold and him are fighting, the cloaking system seems to be offline,
right?
And it's more like, oh, I can actually tell where you are now. Now I can aim a bit better and actually try and hit you. I do love that minigun scene because Ventura just goes crazy and nobody asks a question. They're all like, oh, we're shooting over here? Cool. Everybody just starts unloading into the forest in the same direction. And they are deforesting that area. Like there is nothing left over. They have no idea what they're shooting at. They're just like, oh, somebody's shooting? Cool. Let's all aim on this. It's like,
These for a great scene, though. The wide angle shot from over their shoulders, just watching the forest collapse as they just shoot lead and smoke into the distance and everything tumbling before them. It was a powerful scene. It was really cool to see. Again, that's why we're here. We're watching shit blow up and we're chasing aliens in the jungle. So for me, that stuff just really helped this movie to become amazing.
Specifically, it also just builds on the fact that what they're fighting is well beyond their pay grade.
Right. Yeah, they gave it their all on that one, and they only scratched him. Of course, we did get the line, if it bleeds, we can kill it. Which
one of the best lines.
Another line that's carried throughout the franchise and made canon throughout the rest of the whole novels and comic books.
At this point. I think that is just pop culture now.
Yeah.
I gotta say, sorry, there was one effect in this movie that I really didn't care for, which was when he's invisible and his eyes just like glow.
Right.
It's just like, oh, that does not hold up well. And maybe a bit of the lightning at the very end when the explosion goes off, like right before the explosion, was kind of like, it's a little Highlandery.
Yeah.
But everything else in this movie holds up really, really well. I thought, now a lot of it's practical effect with like the helicopter stuff like that, but those are good looking scenes.
Mhm.
And when you first see the Predator, pretty much every time you see the Predator, like that is a legit suit. Like when he takes his helmet off and you see the face up close, I have no notes. Like that's perfect. It looks amazing.
Could not be
almost
better.
30 years later. 40 years?
Yep.
Almost 40 years later.
You're still using it. Yep.
And
Thank
it
you,
looks
practical effects.
so good. As opposed to like we get CGI that 3 weeks later looks terrible.
Yeah.
Like we need more movies with this kind of practical effects budgets.
Yeah, for me, again, I'll rain this down every moment I can. It's a blend. You have to use the CG to complement practical effects because practical effects look real because they are real. Somebody had to build it. The robotics inside, like the movements, are real movements, and CG still has trouble putting weight and realistic nature to those things, to living things especially.
Sometimes gets stuck in that uncanny valley where it looks right, but there's something amiss.
Yeah,
and we just haven't gotten there.
Right? It's
Right, yeah, or it's too perfect. Yeah. So one thing when it comes to the special effects and practical effects, okay, the invisibility cloaking, I thought that was amazing. It looked great.
Yep.
Looks a little weird when he's coming out of the water and it's kind of flashy and stuff, and we see that still kind of weird looking. I guess it's they're using an effect akin to green screen. They're taking 2 shots and overlaying them and fading one in and out to make him kind of, and it's okay, it works, whatever. The cloaking invisibility thing looks great, but the best effect of all was when they don't use an effect. They zoom into the trees and you presume he's on a branch out there somewhere and your eyeballs are bleeding trying to find him, but I don't think he's there. Like I've paused the movie several times in these and I've been like scouring, trying to find him. And I'm like, they're just zooming in on empty branches and it works. You're like, he's there. And you're just like trying to find him. That was the effect that I thought was so amazing, was that they didn't use an effect and just zoomed in on empty branches.
Well, it's a good way of putting you in the movie as well, because that's exactly what they're doing, is just staring out at nothing, trying to like, where is this thing? What's going on? Like, he's got to be up there somewhere. He's got to be around. But they have no idea. They can't tell if he's there or not. And it really does put you in that same thing. I think it would have ruined it even if there had been like
something you could see.
Well, like zooming in. Oh, there he is.
And then,
because then like
the red eyes or whatever.
Yeah. Branch over there. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think it's brilliant. Yeah, you're right that they just left it alone.
Yep, it was really good. When Dylan and Mac are then working together to try and flush him out, and sometimes you can see him and sometimes you can't, and they show you see the Predator when they want you to. They overdo it with the yellow eyes, right? They just needed to not do the yellow eyes. They overdo it there, but you see the Predator when the characters are seeing the Predator, and he's not there at all when they're looking around for him and haven't got a lock on him. And I think it's a great way to use the effect really well.
You just talking about the Dylan Mac scene, or their little small side quest, I guess.
Right.
It's probably one of my favorite parts of the movie because they set it up throughout of the Predator mimicking sounds and mimicking Mac's voice. And he's like, hey, come here. And you think that it's the Predator gonna just get Dylan. And then Mac pulls him in. And I was like, that's such a great build up and setup that I just thought it was a great payoff for that. That was a nice scene.
Yeah. There are a lot of sequences like that little things happened and paid off later. You see the guys hanging in the tree, they're all skinned in the very beginning, and everybody's like, what's going on? And you realize those were the guys that Dylan sent in to get his men out of the chopper. And he's trying to like not say anything about it at in the beginning. And so you kind of, when he sees the Predator with his own eyes, you kind of see the weight. He's like, wow, all these things I did, they were right. This thing's real. I need to help these guys. I need to try and balance the scales because of the mistakes that I've made, and so he's all in to help Mac on that one. Loses an arm for his efforts.
I think he loses more than that.
Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah. Cool seeing those gun drops on the ground and it's still firing, and he's trying to unsling his other gun as he swings around, all muscles and sweat and bullets everywhere. Yeah, it was great. It was great.
All right, well, Dan, do you have anything else you want to talk about movie-wise, or do you want to try to get into some rankings here? How do you want to play this?
We've discussed the team building, and we've discussed the team falling apart, for lack of a better term, the team destruction. But a good chunk of this movie is just straight up Arnold versus the Predator. That's legitimately about a third of the movie. Let's talk about that for a brief little bit, and then we can go on to maybe our overall feelings and get the scores down. The movie turns into Arnold versus Predator at about the hour and 20 mark, giving us about half an hour of just the two of them. The girls made her way to the chopper. We see her later on. So the girls made her way to the chopper. Everybody else is dead. It is just one-on-one, and you can kind of see Arnold has been picking things up throughout this movie about how this guy operates, how this guy works. And the first really big piece of the puzzle is when he gets himself covered in clay and is like, oh, he's seeing through infrared. He couldn't see me because of this clay. Watching it this time around, again, I haven't seen it in a couple of years, he's not wearing nearly enough clay to mask his body temperature. He's barely dirty at all. You're just like, okay.
Yeah.
I think that was a real world issue, because actually putting him in wet mud and clay actually lowered his body temperature to he was shivering when filming. So they had to play that pretty light, I think, and do what they could to fake it to make it.
Yeah, a lot of this film was filmed at night, so of course it's cold. He's wearing this
on location
wet clay, and they're trying to keep him warm with hot lamps and stuff like that. But then it's just baking the clay onto him, and it's well, that doesn't work. So you have to keep the clay wet and him warm. There's not a lot of good ways to do that. And it's yeah, I get it, but it's just watching it this time around, nah, you're glowing red still, bud. There's no way you're masked entirely. He doesn't show up at all. He's literally not there. It's
and let's be honest, that's also, it's all fun action movie.
Sure.
It
gets the point across. It's a way of showing that Arnold learned and things better happened off. So.
Yeah, it's a fun way to get around this Predator, this ultimate thing, but in reality, that heat sensor would pick him up so fast.
Right.
Yeah, well, and we'll see more of the failures of thermal temperature readings in other films too. That I'm come on, he'd have seen that, So yeah.
Now, once this movie turns into Arnold versus Predator, is it essentially just Home Alone for adults?
That's a pretty good way to put it. Okay, so I have a question.
Okay, cool.
When he goes for the kill shot booby trap on the Predator at the end, he's luring him in saying, come on, kill me, I'm here, kill me. And the Predator comes in and he sees the spikes and he walks around, and Schwarzenegger goes, oh no, I failed. Now, part of me was okay, he's not a great actor showcasing this emotion of failure. Part of me was is he trying to play it off because he knows about the big log over here and he wants to drop that on the Predator, and it was all part of the plan that he was going to get him either way? I couldn't really tell if it was just kind of his expression was not the best for that scene, or if he was actually he's cool with the Predator walking around because he's going to drop the log on him and he knew it was coming too.
I was taking it as I think the log was supposed to be a counterweight for whatever the spikes were to shove into him or something, right? So the log falls and the spikes jump out, and that's what he's waiting on. But then when the Predator starts walking around, he's oh crap, I'm dead, because now I got nothing left in the tank. I'm laying down, I'm in a bad situation, and the Predator just happens to go exactly where the dead weight's going to be, and he's oh,
okay,
plan B.
That's what the way that I was reading.
I'm not saying that's accurate, but.
I think you're right. That's what I always originally thought, but really paying attention to it, there was kind of a look on Schwarzenegger's face, and I'm wondering. He's okay, maybe he's playing along, he's upset about this because maybe this booby trap wasn't as good. If you watch it, there's a lasso that I think they edit into this with special effects to show something that was supposed to go up through the branches and raise him up into the spikes. but it looks really like after like done in post. It looks really weird. And you only catch it for a fraction of a second as this lasso flies up through the air, empty lasso, and then of course the log drops down on him. So I was just making sure I wasn't seeing things.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think he was probably like, I'm cooked.
I'm screwed. Yeah.
And then luck was on his side.
Right.
The placement of the counterweight. That reads to me pretty good.
Yeah. It's too small of a target to have planned exactly where he was going to be for that to have happened, unless it happened by dumb luck. But I know the alien can't, well, we assume the alien can't understand English, but the fact that Arnold's like begging it to come and kill him just also seems wrong. It feels like, for what we know of the Predator, from what Arnold knows of the Predator, like taunting him with like, I'm going to kill you, would probably have worked out better than like, come get me, I'm wounded. Like, that's not really how Predator, like, up until now, Predator's been like, no, I want to kill you with you. I want to kill the person who's got the biggest gun, not just like the random woman who's unarmed. So when he's sitting there like begging, like, oh, come get me, it's just like, I don't know if that's the right tactic there, bud.
Right.
And it wasn't, because then the Predator's like, what's going on here?
Yeah,
Looks around,
comes off.
and like,
Right.
all right,
Yeah, that makes sense. That checks.
I never really thought about it before, but Predators are pretty sore losers. Like, when they die, they're just like, no, I'm going to nuke the area now. Like, you don't get to win. You don't get the honor.
Yeah.
Sometimes they give up. Now, I think that's some sort of a rule that they're not allowed to leave their technology behind for the species to use to adapt or something. That's my guess, right? But especially in Predator 2, he gives up pretty easy in Predator 2, or tries to. And in Predator 1, he's crushed by a log, and Schwarzenegger's holding the rock over his head. Like, he's done, dude. Yeah. He's not getting out of that one. So, okay, time to bow out. Beep, boop, boop, let's go. But yeah, they don't like losing, do they?
Is he laughing at the end, or is that a recording from earlier of other people laughing?
Okay, that's one of those sound effects that they reuse and they kind of like warp it. It's supposed to be Billy's laughter, but then it gets louder and louder and more cackly. And I thought that his mask helped him to amplify sound and alter sound and change it. I didn't think that crustacean face of his had the vocal cords to really put forth the sounds that were coming out of him, and so it kind of drew me out. And that ending laugh was pretty bad too. Yeah. And then the other thing too, the explosion at the end, in later movies, we're told that was supposed to take out 300 city blocks.
Yeah,
and I was that's nuts. That wasn't that big.
Yeah, I think we got to remove ourselves from future movies at this point, though, because this is the first and foremost, right?
Yeah, but
a little bit.
That was one of those sound effects, that laughter, which I was like, this is another. This is the third time they've used Billy's laugh. They use it once before Billy actually laughs. They use Billy's laugh in the sequence where he does it, and then they use it again at the end, and they turn it into that raging cackle. Mm-hmm. And it was a little, it was one of those things. They used it a little too much.
Yeah, I think there's like a couple of reasons for the self-detonating. One, it's a convenient way to lose all evidence of this thing being there, so nobody will find out about these species. And I think the other one is like, maybe it's like in the cackle itself being like, this was fun, thanks for the fun, I'm going out with a boom. I had a great time. I kind of figured it was more like the harakiri or whatever, where they slice open their guts in shame to kill themselves. Yeah, this was like they blow themselves up because they're ashamed that they lost. You know?
Interesting. Okay. I assumed it was I'm gonna get you. Like, you think you win? No, I'm gonna nuke this whole area and you're gonna die too.
I like that better, actually. I like that. That rides better with their idea. Why else would he laugh and blow himself up? If he's ashamed and blowing himself up, he wouldn't be laughing, I wouldn't think.
Yeah. Although I don't know
if I like both of those takes. I don't know if I like either of those takes, actually.
Fair. I like your take because they kind of gave themselves a way to make infinite sequels, where if the Yacha are destroying themselves at the end, then you can have them all through history. Because we see now, I have not seen The Predator or Predators, and I've only seen Predator 2 once. So Predator is the one that I'm by far the most familiar with.
And
But,
for
like,
anybody in chat who didn't catch that, Yacha or Hayucha is the like technical name, like a xenomorph for aliens. It's a Hayucha or Yacha for the predators.
Fair enough.
No, I don't know if anybody got that. That was the first time we've used that word.
That's fair. That's fair. So in Prey, spoilers for the 5th movie, they're back in time. They're back like 203 or 100 years. I don't know exactly
1762.
1760. Wow, that was impressive off the top of your head.
I
Anyways,
watched number 2 and recently, so
they're
like
like
the pistol.
300 years in the past, and the fact that the spoilers Predator dies makes sense why we don't have him in a museum somewhere, because there's nothing left of him. Right? Like, that's kind of a cool idea. Now you're like, okay, cool. Now we can have them in like feudal Japan or the medieval times or wherever. And yeah, of course we're never going to find them, because either they're going to win and get away, or they're going to lose, blow themselves up, and we've got no records of them. If that was what they were trying for, that's really cool. I don't know if that's what they were planning for in this movie. I think it was just the one last chance to kill Arnold, show him what kind of a badass he is. Who knows?
Yeah, one last exciting explosion, right?
I think there are so many good stories about the Predator in the comic books and graphic novels and regular novels. There's so many, like you mentioned, feudal Japan. There's some great samurai versions of the Predator. Like there's just so many. And I would like to see those. I would like to just see these one-off stories. Like Prey, a great movie, it ties in ways, and we'll talk about it later, but it ties in. But it could be a total standalone encounter with the Predator. We don't have to have this development of backstory with them that we'll see in later films that I didn't appreciate too much. Just put the Predator in there, let him do battle with some badasses. You know?
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Like, just the issue with Predator, I think, I haven't seen a couple of the movies, but also with, say, like Terminator, is like the first one's scary because it's just this unrelenting force coming after you.
Mm-hmm.
And then they more of the same, bigger budget, bigger. And it's like, my understanding is one of these Predator movies has like 7 Predators in it. And it's like, that's unnecessary. What you just need is one really terrifying, badass Predator who's just going around and like murdering you, murdering your friends, murdering your family, murdering your team, whatever it is. And it's just like, that's kind of all I need. Like, just do that, but in different settings with different people. Like, show me different versions of this story, and I'm probably relatively okay with it, as long as it's not literally cut and paste.
We've seen similar things done in the Alien franchise. The first one was one alien hunting a bunch of people, and it was scary as shit. The second Aliens was a lot of aliens and lots of guns, and they changed all the parameters. Then they went back to it in Alien 3, and it was on a prison, which was scary, labyrinth, prisoners, you know, she's the only woman, all kinds of crazy stuff. So it was scary in that sense. And so we've seen some changing of it where it works or it doesn't work. And I think with Predator and we'll see in Predator 2, they stuck with the same formula, but they just changed the settings. And for me, that works. I just want to see the Predator do battle with badasses in different settings. And we get a taste of that in some other films, but they do change it up in some other films in ways that I don't like, where they're trying to build backstory or build character development within the Predator itself. We'll see that in Predator 2, actually. They try and give the Predator a little bit more of a personality, actually. And so they do try some different things in the movie. That's why I'm so excited about this franchise, because each film has so much to talk about. I'm really looking forward to getting through and watching the rest of them and going over it with you guys.
Now, again, I haven't seen 2 of the movies, so don't spoil this for me if this is the situation. But from the ones that I have seen, my only real issue is they all seem to have the same, like, 3 weapons. It'd be really cool if the Predators really switched up what they brought to battle. Like, oh, this guy really likes the shoulder cannon and the Wolverine claws, but the next guy, he likes X and Y instead. That would be a really cool way. But I think they stick pretty much like, no, these are the 3 weapons they use. Go. And it's like, all right, well, now if you
they kind of have variations on the 3 weapons. In fact, I think Predator 2 has the biggest variations in weapons from like one. He's got the like disc. He's got the net that he can shoot and pin him. The spear, which was pretty new and different. And then in later movies, we just see different variations of all these weapons.
Nice. All right, so what did you think overall? Now, do we want to go by category and just do like across the board, or just like one person gives their entire spiel on what they thought of the movie and do it that way?
I'm down with
Jacob,
just
you
giving
can edit this out, by the way.
I'm just down for the final scoresies because I still rate slightly different than you two, I think.
Fair enough.
I rate different every single time we do this. I come up with a different set of categories to really push into.
Yeah, I
It's
think
episode 3. That's fine.
Yeah, end number is what matters most, I think.
Yeah.
All right. So, Will, do you want to start us off?
Sure, yeah. Predator, again, I've seen it a dozen times more, probably. Great action flick. Coming back and analyzing it, probably docked it a few tallies, but that's okay. That's the process. Doesn't make it any less of a great movie for myself, and that's all that matters is myself, right? So get over it. No. Overall, kind of blending between the genre itself. I always like to put genre front and foremost to kind of give every movie an even footing going into these rankings. I feel that's important. But overall, genre, acting, writing, direction, and if the movie holds up. Yellow Eyes, not so much. But overall, my final rating for Predator is an even 80. I think it's a really solid action movie. It holds up because, you know, it's what action movies really came into their own being, you know, in the mid 80s, late 80s, just like these muscly guys, over the top explosions, and just grit and craziness. So I think that's where it lands for me overall. It's a fun ride, acting, writing aside. You know, everything else is like, it's just always hitting high notes for me. So
when you say genre,
yeah, so like franchise wise, this isn't to me, this falls into an action genre. I know there's sci-fi elements, but
primarily action. I agree with
feel
that.
It's primarily action movie, whereas Godfather is not so much.
Right.
You know, Rush Hour is an action
So that's not so much as a grade that you put on it or anything. It just helps you to adjust the scoring to appropriate for a different genre. If you were comparing this to The Godfather, you couldn't do apples to apples with it.
That's right. So like as far as genre of Godfather, which is like mobster or crime movie, it's going to get top marks in that 20-point ranking that I give it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, Predator as an action movie, I feel like it's an 18 out of 20. It's a great action genre movie. So that's kind of how I kind of try to make it fit within the overarching rankings, because obviously The Godfather's a better movie than Predator.
Mm-hmm.
But in the case of an action movie, it's a great action movie. Mm-hmm. Godfather is a great crime movie. So I feel like I try to give it an even footing for the overall ranking of franchising.
That checks.
I feel like I do something very similar to that, where I go into this movie expecting an action movie, and does it deliver on that? Is it fun in that regard? Does it give me what I want from an action movie? Mm-hmm. Which is why you can kind of score the way you can. Because again, exactly, if you're going to compare this to Godfather, this is like a 2. But if you compare this to other action movies, yeah, it seems totally reasonable.
Exactly. And because we're facing it on a franchise list at the end, I think it's the only fair way to give some movies a chance.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Some franchises, right? So,
right, absolutely.
And you're seeing Brian? These movies for different reasons, right? So,
for me, I agree. In the action genre, I think this is one of the pinnacles of success. I think this sets a high bar for other action films. There are very few action films today that can muster as much fun and enjoyment for me as Predator does. This was so good that you don't even care about the flaws. The cheesy one-liners, they feel great. You're loving it, you know?
I'm here.
The hip firing machine guns and explosive rounds into buildings where there were supposed to be some hostages, but we just don't care. That's fantastic. I'm loving it. It's every little bit of it. The taking what starts out as a sci-fi horror kind of monster-ish theme, and Schwarzenegger whittles it down and says, hey, let's go analog, let's go old school. I'm going to take out all your tech toys. I'm going to strip down to my skivvies, cover myself in mud, and throw some sticks at you. And you've got this badass jungle boy running around fighting it's just so much fun. This movie just is one of the greats for me. I enjoy it immensely. I always stop to watch it. I'm always smiling when I watch it. That's why this one, for the fun factor, just goes through the roof, and I gave it 99 out of 100 for the fun factor portion, okay? However, the scoring, they have a great kind of drummed orchestra kind of theme that is carried out through other movies in the franchise because it is really good and it's useful, and they can build the excitement by raising the volume on this, raising the drums and everything during the heavy sequences, and lower it back down and have it a settle back, or like whatever. It can play the whole movie long, different variations and fluctuations of the song, that the Predator song, da 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 da, we all know it now. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. And they used one song really well. The opening helicopter scene gets you pumped for this movie, gets you feeling good right off the bat, enjoying these characters. A great use of that one song. I wish they could have done a little bit more with that. However, the sound effects throughout the movie were somewhat distracting. The Predator trying to copy the voices was cool, but they kind of overused it or misused it every once in a while, and that was a little bit of a drawback. Some of the special effects were a little over the top, a little too much electricity here and there. The glowing yellow eyes was unnecessary. But aside from just could have used a little bit more polish, and of course, remember, they're trying to push things. They really wanted this movie to pop. So I can't begrudge them too much for that. The rest of the special effects and practical effects were incredible. To this day, we still use the same Predator costume. It's still the same suit that they're using, not the same suit, but they model the same suits, everything after the original, because it was so well done. And that's fantastic. The acting, there were pluses and minuses. I talked about that earlier, where some of the actors really surprised me in how good they could portray Mac talking about his relationship with Blaine from the past and talking to his buddy as he shares a drink over his dead body. And it was really good. It was almost too good for this movie. It almost stood out as wow, you're really, you don't need to do that. You just got to blow shit up, and I'm happy. So it was good there. But then you had some other lines and dialogue that the dialogue in the script had some holes in it that really kind of took me out. I'm like, Overall, this came in really high for me. It was an 87 overall. I think it's just a fantastic movie. It's fun. It's just pure fun to watch this. And it really set a great franchise up, a wonderful start. And we have had some good and bad movies that'll follow. And I'm so excited to be going over this franchise with you guys to get into all of them.
Nice. I agree with a lot of what you said. I think the music in this movie actually set the tone very, very well. You've got that jungle beat like you were talking about, which is carried on through the movies as far as I can remember. It does hold up really well in this one for the most part. The helicopter scene at the beginning we already touched on. The music in there works really well. A lot of the sounds make this tense. They kind of build the tension throughout this movie as it goes. I really, really liked that. My only issue with it is at the very, very end, there's some incredibly cheesy heroic movie music when you see Arnold stepping out of the smoke. And then as he gets picked up by the helicopter, it goes back to that really tense jungle theme, the Predator music, which I get, it's the franchise music, but it all of a sudden I'm tense again. I'm just back to oh no, what's gonna happen? There's gonna be another jump scare or something. There's not. It's the credits. And it's just I didn't like the cheesy music, but that felt more like where we're at in the movie. Going back to that you're in danger music just felt wrong somehow. Not enough to really dig the movie all that much. I really did like the sound effects in it and whatnot, so I was okay with that. Again, as far as sound effects go, the Predator being able to use their voices again as a way to lure them around, I really liked that. For reasons passing understanding, Bill Duke's line of "anytime," is something that lives rent-free in my head for like the last 20 years. Like if you ever see me in Discord type anytime to somebody, I guarantee you I was thinking of this movie when I did that. So the music got a pretty high score. I think this movie looks gorgeous. Again, we've already touched on it. The eyes don't look very good. Some of the lightning effect isn't really good. The monster itself, the predator, the yacht, whatever, looks insane. The jungle looks really good. The opening scene of them flying in the helicopters all looks amazing, especially for 1987. I think they did a great job with whatever budget they had, about 15 million, which is not bad for 87. It's pretty good. They made that back pretty much the opening weekend, which I thought was incredible. The acting, it's tough, man, because I love Arnold Schwarzenegger so much. I recognize that he's not a great actor. I understand it, and I just don't care. I still love his movies, love his one-liners. I think there's so much fun. He's got so much charisma, and this team, like if you put Jesse Ventura in almost any other movie, I'm sure he wouldn't work whatsoever. He is perfect in this movie.
Absolutely.
He is Tyrannosaurus. Like, he is phenomenal in this, as is Bill Duke, as is Shane Black, as is Carl Weathers. I apologize, I'm forgetting the other two guys' names off the top of my head, but like this cast is perfect for this film. I don't know how well they'd work in other films, but for this movie, they do so well. But there are still times when Arnold says something and my brain goes, ooh, no. Second take, try that one again. We can do better. So I did have to take this one a little bit for that, despite the fact that I love the cast. They're not the greatest of actors. The plot, as I mentioned, I really like the idea of this movie. Just like a bunch of people going into the jungle and just getting picked apart until they can figure out what their enemy is and then having to overcome the enemy. I really like that. I do wish we didn't know that it was an alien right off the hop. I wish it was a bit more mysterious of what is going on. Maybe the shaman character, the guide, could have been like, oh, you know, it's I've heard tales of this monster, something like that. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, especially now with Prey out there, that'd be really cool if like they brought that back in some way. Like, oh, I've heard tales of my ancestors of this monster. That would have been a really fun aspect. Obviously, they had no idea about Prey coming out 30-something years later. But, you know, if you could go back, that would have been an awesome thing to have done. And enjoyment level, I really enjoy this movie. I didn't enjoy it as much this time as I have historically. Like, I feel like the nostalgia glasses were stronger for this one than the actual viewings. Right. I still really liked it. But I remember loving this movie when I was younger. And now it's like, oh, that was fun. I liked it.
Yeah.
Not a big ding, just a little bit of one, just not quite as high as some of the other scores, but it's definitely not the 99 out of 100 that you give it, Brian. But I still really like this one. I am shocked that I'm coming in the lowest on this, but I'm coming in at a 79. So not far below.
Yeah,
but a little low.
Minute.
Right, but it is still technically like I really would have thought it'd be a bit higher. But
yeah, you obviously hated the movie.
Yeah, clearly. We're starting off the Predator franchise with a score of 82 combined, which is pretty good. I have not seen two of the movies, and I've heard they're awful, so that's probably going to tank the score a little bit. The other two that I've seen, I liked. So we'll have to see if I still enjoy them on the next viewing, how you guys feel about this franchise, and kind of where we go from there. But I think 82 is a pretty solid start to this.
It's very great. It's a great start. It's a fun movie.
All right, and that is our rating of Predator from 1987 starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now, obviously, we've got a couple more movies to go before we have a total score, but what do you think? Are we on the right track so far? Is 82 sound about right to you? Is it a little high, a little bit low? Let me know down in the comments below. I want to thank Jacob from JBD Homes Productions for the editing of this video, and I want to thank Will and Brian for their time. This is a passion project of mine, and everybody is just kind of donating their time and expertise willingly, and that's absolutely fantastic. So if you're enjoying this show, make sure you let them know. I'll leave links to their Twitch and YouTube in the description below as well. Go give them a follow, give them a like, give this video a like if you enjoyed it. And if you want to see more of this content, hit that subscribe button. It does really help out a whole lot. Until next time, I hope you're safe, I hope you're well, and have a good night.